thank you for your generous gift, and you can be sure here at Lacey Creek, we use up building of the church. Turn service over now, Brother Jim.
We want to turn to 623. That'll be our closing song. If you're here today and you're not a child of God, I pray that you would strongly consider if there's ever a decision in your life that you'll ever make, that's the most important. It's more important than your job. It's more important than picking a mate, because your eternity rests and rides on that one decision. I'll be very honest with you, I've always tried to do that. That may not be for everybody. Everybody is not going to come to the Lord. But everybody needs to hear the message of how to get there. And after you get there, how to live. Those are the most important things in your life. You'll take nothing with you. If you have spent 100% of your life here accumulating, and I accumulate, everybody does, ain't nothing going with you. Not a thing. I believe it was Job that said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return hence. We need to think. And we need to think for ourselves, because that's who we're going to answer for, not someone else. What someone else says, what someone else does, will basically be me or you. And that's a pretty good feeling. Once you get that lined out and you get that out of the way, then you can really start to live. You really can. I didn't know how to live before I became a Christian. I thought I did. But I had no concept of what it was like to be forgiven of God. To be forgiven of God. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing. And so consider yourself very fortunate that you have a day to do that. You have a time to do that. Some people never get that time. Their life has been snuffed out in an instant. In a profession that I was in, that was my constant companion. When you do high voltage electrical work, it's your constant companion. And that made me think more deeply, I guess, about it than anything. But number 623, that's a good question. What are you waiting on? You could probably get as many answers as there are people as to why do you wait. A lot of things get put off for different, various reasons. When you have everything around you, it's difficult to really be thankful. For this country we're in, for the food we have to eat, all the blessings that we have, we try to be thankful, but we can't. You never miss something until you lose it. You remember in the Bible, the lady that lost the pearl. It was a pearl of great price. And she searched the house and she swept. Life is a pearl of great price. I want to talk for just a few minutes. I want to go to the Gospel of Matthew. And I want to start with the 5th verse. Or the 5th chapter, I'm sorry. And all of you, if you're not there yet, some of you are getting close. You start losing your edge a little bit. the ability to think and to put things together and reason. That's a natural process. Happens to everybody if you live long enough. But if you go back up in that 4th chapter and you look at all that the Master had been doing, we accept it, but yet we can't appreciate it. He had fed the masses with a few fish and just a few loaves. And he fed the masses, and they saw that miracle. There were lepers before their very eyes, and they were cleansed. There were people that were lame, and they walked again. We have to take that by faith that it happened. Those people saw it. But now the Bible says, here's the kicker. In our generation and our time, we walk by faith and not by sight. You're probably not going to see that ever again. But there was people that were there that attested to it. They recorded it, and you have it at your disposal by opening your Bible. And you can watch the flow of history. You can watch the miracles. You can watch the fulfillment of prophecy. You can watch all of these things as they flow just as God said they would. Jesus in his time and the men that followed him, they got tired. And going into chapter 5, it said, and seeing the multitude, he went up on a mountain. And when he was seated, his disciples came to him. He picked a place, he picked a time to get away from the flow of life, to get away from the multitudes, to get away from even the miracles he'd been doing. And he brought them there to him. And in our lives, there are times we need to do that. We need to get away from the flow of time and ideas and newscasts and everything that you get bombarded with every day. There should be a time that you get away from that and you get with the Master. That is not possible unless you know him. Unless you know him, that can never happen. And yet, that is what our world so desperately needs. So he set the situation, he got away from the crowds, and he went up into the mountain. And here's what he's saying to them, and I'm saying that to you today. It is still good today. It is good today. Then he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, and here is what he said. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That one always kind of intrigued me a little bit about why he was talking about the poor in spirit. Are we poor? We usually think, well, there's not much there. You don't have much. That's not what he's talking about. In reality, he's talking about having a humble spirit in their attitude toward God, just as ours should be today. God dislikes or hates a haughty spirit. If we have a haughty spirit today, I've got everything under control. I've got a plan. The plan's working. Who needs God? Who needs Him? Those kind of spirit that God cannot use. He can't use you. He can't use me. Because we hurt His kingdom more than we help. But if we have a loving spirit, a kind spirit, a good spirit, He loves that. And He said, you're blessed if you've got that kind of spirit, because you're going to inherit the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. It's an impossibility to go through life without hurt. The hurt varies from the time you're a child and you cut your finger or you brush your knee or something like this, and the first thing you do is you run to mama. And that's okay, that's good. You cannot enjoy life until you mourn. And we all mourn to some degree and everything. We mourn if our children mess up. We mourn. That's mourning. It's worry. It's mourning. There are different ways to mourn. It doesn't necessarily mean that you cry tears. You can mourn inside, and nobody will ever know that but you and the Master. He said, when you do this, when you hurt, whatever the hurt is, it can come in different angles. It could come from loss of someone we love, or it comes in many different directions that causes mourning inside. And he said, if you do this, you get rid of it. Mourning is good. Mourning is good. Crying is good. It is a release. And that's what he's saying. If you mourn over something, don't be disappointed. He said, because that's where your comfort comes from. It is that release of that problem that bothers us and causes us trouble. If you can fix it, fix it. If you can't, walk off and leave it. One of the greatest devices that the devil has is indecision. You are caught between this and you're caught between that, and you can't make a decision about it. It doesn't matter what it is. Decisions, life is full of them. They're never going to stop, and every decision has a result. You can't make a decision and not have a result. Many people may go back to their childhood, and it haunts them the rest of their life because they can't turn it over to the Lord and mourn about it and let God comfort them. Mourning is a natural thing, and you need to do it. There's no disgrace in that. It is one of the gifts of God to be able to do that, because he said, once you do that, you're blessed. I'll give you some comfort. He said, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. That one kind of always intrigued me a little bit. Meek. And when you, what conjures up in your mind when you think of something meek or someone meek? What do you think of? You usually associate it with weakness. Don't ever do that, because that's not what it means. Meekness is not weakness, but there is strength in meekness. That's the reason he said these are the people that are going to inherit the earth. These are the strong people, and the weak wash out. But he said the meek will inherit the earth. David said, I believe it was David, I'll have to get Dan and Tom and Paul, some of the younger ones. I depend on them to correct things that I'm not yet. But he said, I will lift mine eyes unto the hills from which cometh my help. Stop. If you stop there, you could say David looked around him and he found strength in the mountains. He found his strength in the country. But when he finished it up, he said, my help cometh from the Lord.
Amen.
I must have got it right. I love to have fun. So it is strength. A lot of people maybe perceive Christians as being, I've had people say, you're not a very strong person if you have to depend on something you can't see and something you can't touch and something you can't feel. You must be a weak person. And I say just the opposite. You're the one that's weak, because you'll never see and you'll be blinded for the rest of your life. You'll live life and you think you've got it made and filled up, and all of a sudden it's snapped off. Too late. You live your life every day, and it swiftly passes away from us. So meekness. He said, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. God is not going to cram anything down your neck. You can do with your life whatever you want to do, but when you mess up in life, don't blame Him. Don't blame God when your children don't know anything about church and Sunday school. Don't blame God for your mistake as parents. You reap what you sow. Attitudes make a difference. Parents are responsible for children to train them up in the way that they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. It said should go, it didn't say would. There's a big difference. I wish that all of my children were close to God, but they're not all close to God. And I want to tell you something. It wasn't because they weren't taught. And so they have nobody to blame but themselves. That's a sign of weakness, when you have to pass the buck to somebody else for your inadequacies. When you have to pass the buck to someone else because you can't come up to par with God. Don't blame somebody else. But if you hunger and you thirst after righteousness, He said, I'll fill you up. So if you're not filled today, you're not completely satisfied with your life, who's to blame? You are. I am. If I'm unhappy today, it's all my fault. You say, well, somebody, or the environment. Come on, that's a cop-out. One of the first things you'll do before God ever changes your life is you're going to have to stand on your own 2 feet before God and say, I have sinned against you. I have sinned against you and against your people and against your goodness and your mercy. I have sinned against you. There's not much of that going on anymore like it was a long time ago. Amen, Renovate? People have changed. This world has changed. And it's not for the best. Everybody is blaming somebody else for their mistakes instead of standing up and say, I done it, I am guilty. And God will never change your life until you do the same thing. That's the only thing that changed my life. I become accountable for my sins, and I didn't blame my family. I didn't blame the environment. I didn't blame the people that I was around. I said, it's me. I'm what's wrong with me. And I did something about it a long time ago. And God done a 180 on me. A 180. And I wouldn't take anything for it. There's a possibility the devil deals in deception. Now, I'll tell you what the Bible says about deception. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. If we sow to the flesh, we will of the flesh reap corruption. If we sow to the Spirit, we will of the Spirit reap spiritual things. Peace, contentment, the ability to mourn. A good spirit, not a haughty spirit. Rather quickly, here I want to go. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. If you can't dish it out, don't ask for it. That's plain. Don't ask somebody to give you mercy if you're not willing to give them mercy. Man up, woman up. Be your individual self. No pretense, just who you are. Be merciful. And he said you will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. God gave too much. He cost him his son for us to cheap slide in. I've never thought that. No, it ain't going to be like that. The pure in mind. That's what the heart is. That's what he's saying. In this life, is there 100% purity? Absolutely not. Because my old adversary and your adversary daily keeps us from being perfectly pure. That will be done when we are changed. And then we will have a pure mind. We will have a pure heart. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. You know what I tell people? Bring it on. You call me a bigot if you want to. You can call me whatever you want to, and that's not going to shake my foundation. There's people get their mind changed every day because they cower away from people that says you're a bigot, or you're this, or you're that, and we shy away from it. You're not going to be in the kingdom of God, because he said that is the people that are going to be in the kingdom of God. Blessed are you when you're reviled and you're persecuted, and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. I'm speaking to a generation. Mine is ending. My generation is closing out. And I was blessed to live in the greatest generation that was ever known. But there's a generation coming. It'll be like a dog fight. People ain't going to have anything good to say to each other. Backbiters, whispers, all of this stuff. It's coming. I just don't know when. But it's going to happen. You can already... Is there anybody in here that can't see a change in your world? Raise your hand. I didn't think so. You think you've seen change? What do you think I've seen? Attitudes of people. They can't even talk anymore. They can't even have a decent civil conversation. And it's coming from the top down. What do they expect? The people that are governed are no better than the people that govern them. And you and I are responsible for putting those people in that position. So don't blame them. It comes right back to me. I reap what I sow. Try to be a peacemaker if you can. If you've got a good spirit, just let it out. It doesn't matter what people say about you. It doesn't matter. You know who you are. You know what your relationship with God. Now I hope if you don't know that, you're going to be a very troubled person. You're going to be a very troubled person. But if you have that peace inside of you, that when God winds everything up, I'm going to a better place. I'm going to a beautiful place where people love and care about each other. May God bless you. This has been a good congregation. You're a good congregation. I'll still be here, but I'm going to be limited. I want you to know I've got this house full of memories, and I wouldn't take anything for it. I wish you well, and if God has spoken to you here today, listen, all you got to do is get on your feet. Same thing I had to do 60 years ago. Get on my feet, stand before this audience and stand before my God and say, I have sinned against you, but I want my life changed. I believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and be immersed with Him in baptism for the remission of sin. That plan has not changed. It will never change, and it will be the same thing that brings us final judgment when we close out the chapter we call life. May the Lord bless you, and may He keep you. We're going to stand together and sing number 623.